upgrade. And that's a huge deal for us because that is very much economical when we compare it to what we build some of our more traditional build-ups. And we're looking at that and saying, boy, this is kind of exciting. We're actually just getting ready to implement a project to build one in the field and measure strains in the field. Everything else has been, an accelerated facility. So we look at that and we say, wow, if we can build something like that, this could be a game changer on, some of our, our highest volume sections would maybe have 9 or 10 inches of hot mix on them. And we say, boy, if we're going to capitalize on this, we have to be able to build quality pavements, right? Because if we go out there and spend a little extra money, or even think that we're gonna exceed the push these lifes out, we got to build them well. And if we don't build them well, we're going to fail. So that's where a lot of this push is coming from our end. And I think everyone sees kind of how these pieces fit together, right? It's like if you got IR for laydown, I see that personally as more of a QC effort. It's going to take some effort on our part to get it there, and force contractors to use it more. But using the thermal, we feel like if we can lay it down without segregating it, if we can use the IC on the rollers to map coverage and make sure we get good compactive effort, and then use this technology like the RDM, where we're using, measuring a high percentage of the pavement we put down, we can raise that bar, and we think we can eliminate a lot of these defects. And the kind of the last key to me has been getting some sort of software like Veda or some sort of way. Beta seems like the most logical tool to me. That's why we were kind of pushing it. But we need that software to be able to manage big data efficiently. Again, we don't have big staff. We got to figure out a way to do that and have some of the stuff more automated, to where you're not getting in Excel spreadsheets with 20,000 lines of data in them and stuff like that, and trying to manage a project by these kind of things. You have to have the software to support it. So it's taken a while for these things to come together, but that's kind of big picture what I see. I really think if we can use these technologies to improve construction quality, that we're going to reap big benefits, and that's going to allow us to do some of these other things. So.
That's great stuff, Craig. Does anybody have any questions for Craig about kind of the ODOT big picture that he just laid out?
Hey, Craig, Steve here. With everything you said, you talked about remediation. Were you thinking you're in a better position now to ask for remediation while the project's still in that construction mode where it's not closed out yet? I mean, you definitely are going to have a better aid to answer dispute resolution.
What we're hoping, Steve, is that by using some of these technologies, and don't get me wrong, none of these things are fully implemented in Ohio. I mean, this is kind of more where we'd like to go, not where we are today. But I personally think, even if we aren't to the point where we could say, on the fly, we're going to fix stuff, right? I mean, that's still going to be challenging. RDM it still has to, you have to wait till it got rolled, right? But yeah, it might on the acceptance decision, but hopefully before that, hopefully, we just recognize something today and we don't do it tomorrow. And, or we stop doing it in a few hours, right? So we just really shrink down the amount of issues that we see on projects is kind of how I see it. I don't know if, I see people, putting them on rollers and, talking about, adding compactive effort maybe, and maybe some of that stuff comes along someday. But I'd be happy if we could just shrink down the amount of time that we're putting down defective stuff or having issues, recognize them sooner. I don't know if that answers your question, Steve, or not. But
yeah, it does. It does.
Yeah, that's exactly the type of things we need to continue to discuss as a group. Craig, thanks a lot for that. Thomas also has called me up a few times, and he was asking some really good questions about big picture related things, standardization of data, all that good stuff. And I wanted to give him 5 minutes or so to give, maybe ask some questions, give a little big picture perspective in New York.
Thanks, Kyle. I kind of just want to say ditto to everything that Craig just said. He really hit on a lot of the same things that we're going through, and a lot of the positives that we see with the technology. And one other add-on to that piece of the conversation, Steve, we just had a project last year, which was not an RDM, which was several miles of paving in the Adirondacks, which had a particularly long haul time. And there was visual segregation after the fact, but there was passing density results based on where our cores fell. So this technology would have given us a way more complete picture as to what we need to do for that level of remediation, as opposed to the disputes that we're now in. So yeah, so that's a definite. I also think the other thing that Craig mentioned is the lack of people right now that we have and the lack of experience. And this offers us a real quantitative form of analysis. It's not just a guy taking tickets who's going to be gone the next day. It's not a guy who may or may not be operating the gauge correctly. It's going to be able to put a number on things, and everybody can much more easily wrap their heads around that. So to that point, some of that data management piece, and I think Kyle brought it up, or maybe Di brought it up. Yes, everything has to be accurate, which is all the work that you're doing right now, and we're nothing if we're not accurate. But we also need to be able to start thinking about how we would implement this into a specification. Mm-hmm. I go back to the ProVal software a lot. It's a standalone product that I can run on my laptop, on my desktop. I can manipulate the data a couple different ways. I can get outputs of the values. I can break them down in a number of ways. Right now, I'm really dependent on the GSSI software. I understand moving to Veda. I haven't personally played with it enough to really have that feel or have a lot of relevant commentary about it. But that ability to get that data out to a project at the end of the day, they're used to getting core numbers. If we can give them your 70% in this range on coverage, or your 20% range on this coverage, we haven't even discussed, at least internally to the state, what our roll-ups will be. Are these going to be 50-foot sections, 10-foot sections? Yes, we're collecting on every 6 inches, but is there going to be a standard? Should there be a standard of what is our smallest unit of average? So it's a lot of those things that now that we've had a year to kind of collect things and kind of start finding out what we don't know, those are the things that we're really trying to hopefully get answers for in the next year or two.
Yeah, really good stuff, Thomas. Thank you. Any questions for Thomas about New York's big picture?
Kyle, it's Glenn.
Hey, Glenn.
How
you have the floor, Glenn. Outstanding.
Okay, just a comment based upon the last 2 speakers. Both Ohio and New York mentioned issues with number and, I'll dare say, quality of people in the field. And I wonder how we can address that through this effort at all. Is there anything we need to do special to make it easier, make it simpler to use, you name it? It just seems like, I know Minnesota has the same issue, and I think it's a nationwide problem. So maybe that's beyond this, but it is important. We want to create a product that's not just accurate, but is also easy to use and valuable to everybody involved. So just throwing it out there, Kyle.
It's a great point, Glenn. And I think we touched on that a little bit with initially Thomas's presentation, where it's kind of a double-edged sword where you're collecting all this data, which is powerful and great, but if you're just exporting it to a huge spreadsheet and asking somebody to look at that and make any sense out of it, it's a big task, and you're creating more of a need for expertise. And I think that's where, whether it's a specific vendor software and hopefully multiple vendor softwares or a third party like Veda, we really got to put our heads together and say, okay, what's the bare minimum that I run this test, I press this button, I generate a report that I can give to somebody, and they can get some useful information about how they're doing with their compaction. And this is something we're taking our best guess at, and it evolves as you collect more data, what is the most effective. But we really got to be a team in this, in the sense of saying, in Alaska, we want this, or in Ohio, we want this, or, and really put our heads together and figure out what this is that is going to be automated and then digestible for people out in the field.
Yeah, and it's one thing for us to create a product that is usable in the field as best we can, and another thing to create a product that maybe is used centrally and information is distributed back to the districts. I know Rebecca's group does that somewhat now with our IC program. But I think it's important to think about long term as we work through all this.
Yeah.
Well, Kyle showed one screen right now. In the new release, there will be a feature in the software can export the data to the Veda. So there is the one feature in the new release. So that may be good for those states has the Veda program to try out, and Kai showed them layout with core locations, core results. And they can get the instantaneous results for the feedback to the field people.
Yeah, I think getting Veda to be a real-time cloud-based software, and I also think about how, not just thermal and intelligent construction, but also some of this e-ticketing type stuff, they all fit together. I mean, for us, we want to know when the trucks are dumping and when the next truck is going to be out there, because we need to monitor that for if there's a change in mix, we want to know exactly what station that change occurs at. And I do think, as Craig kind of said, these all tie hand in hand. It's just a question of, as a group, how do we approach it so that we can extract all this powerful information and do it with the resources we have in terms of personnel and expertise.
Kyle, this is Craig. I'm just sitting here thinking that, as you move forward with some of this stuff, I mean, you gotta, I think, keep kind of two hats, and part of it is just, boy, I'd like more, I like better, I like higher, but at some point you got to then start to say, okay, now what's practical? What can I really do?
Mm-hmm.
We don't have PhDs on construction sites. Data analysis, things have to be straightforward. They have to be relatively simple, feasible, right? You can't have some quality control test that requires this super complex procedure to go through, right? I mean,
Yeah,
things got to be straightforward and simple. And kind of to Glenn's point, I think we got to think about that. And he also gets I'm glad he turned his monitor on, because he gets the coolest office I've seen on anything he's been so far, a wood shop. So that's awesome. So.
Craig, that brings up a good point, and it's, at what point is the technology good enough to go out and try it and let the vendors develop the advancements in the technology?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in my opinion, we have to be satisfied enough that we're accurately paying a contractor, right? I mean, we don't want to have things where one person on one side of the contract is just inadvertently getting the monkey put to them because of something that we didn't think of or we didn't notice. So as long as we have those kind of controls and we're satisfied with that, yeah. But like you're talking about, Kevin, you know, maybe you can. You don't have to have everything on your wish list accomplished probably to make some steps forward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that's it. It's getting it out there, and Kyle mentioned it too. There's a lot of GPR radars out there, and if they start seeing you using the technology, that's a big push for people and contractors to say, "I need this," and that's going to advance the technology more than maybe just isolated groups that, like we're talking about, maybe 2 or 3 other vendors right now that are working on it. And how do we share that information with them? And maybe that's how do we get out to the bigger vendors?
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of great comments, and I'm thinking, you know, to put it on 2 extremes, we want it to be as simple as possible, but on the other hand, we don't want to take that technology out there, find a deficient density spot, pay the contractor less or ding them for it, and then they come back and tell us, okay, let's take a core there, and it turns out we had a sensor that was biased. So I think we're walking a tightrope here in terms of, you know, on the one hand, not trying to be too sophisticated with the technology to the point where we can't physically collect the data the way we need to collect it. But also we got to make sure that data that we're collecting, we can stand behind. And it's something that if we get questioned on it, we have done all the necessary checks to make sure it's of the quality that it needs to be. And some of this stuff right now is not deployable. You can't walk behind with a cart for 15 miles back and forth for all your projects. It's more proving concepts and figuring out, okay, first let's figure out how do we make the technology work the way it needs to work. Once we get that figured out, okay, maybe we got to put it on a gator with a movable bracket, or, you know, maybe we got to do a robot, or, you know, whatever it ends up being. And I do understand that a lot of times this starts to move to pie in the sky instead of, okay, what do we have right now and how do we make it implementable as is? And I do think, you know, Craig put it really well. You got to have 2 hats on, and I think having people like Craig and having this group talk about it and discuss it, I think we'll hopefully be able to walk that tightrope the right way. We've been on schedule the whole meeting, and we haven't got the states to give updates yet, and I don't want to miss that. So, Di, can you lead the last portion of our?
Yeah. So I just want to give a comment on Kevin's comments about getting a big vendor involved, and there are big vendors. I mean, we got them involved in the beginning of the DPS study. We invite them come here, like a census software and Earth Science and the Peer Exchange a couple of times a few years ago, and also the talk about the TRB meeting. So they're very aware of our this DPS Pooled Fund study as well too, and also this technology. So I think they're moving advanced technology by themselves now. Steve also talked about maybe later this year or early of next year, we should get some user group meetings, and also invite this vendors join this user group meetings and talk about, give them chance to present the progress on the equipment development. So in terms of the last item in today's meeting is the state's updates. I want to go to the main first. I know Dale Peabody, and he made the comments in the chat box. And Dale, are you still there?
Yes, I'm here, Di.
Okay, thank you. And do you want to give a little update on?
Just real quick, where we are, we did receive the 2.0 version last fall, and it was, I think, kind of late in the game, so we were not able to get out on the road with it. So this year, right now, we have one fairly large project on the interstate, 11 miles. It's a mill and fill, 1.5 inch surface. It's a gap graded rubber mix that we're going to get out on as much as possible. And that project also has the paver mounted, the thermal profiler. So we're going to have that data, and we'll do the the lab calibration, the core calibration, do that comparison on it. In addition, we're working with UNH, as some others are, on their study that's looking at using dielectric for the bulk specific gravity. So we hope to run a bunch of tests for that as well to collect some data for UNH. And that's all we have for now. Hopefully we can pick up other projects. A lot of our, as Ulrich mentioned, a lot of our paving is, we have a handful of mill and fills and a handful of inch and a quarters, and then it's all less than 1 inch. So we'll do what we can to get out on projects and hopefully collect some good data on those.
You'll be wanting the results of the thin lifts as soon as possible, then, it sounds like.
Yeah, I think so. That'd be helpful.
Okay.
So are you planning to collect data by yourself, or are you going to planning to maybe hire somebody or contract to collect data?
No, it will be us. It will be, a GPR crew or Ulrich. And I know I think Rick was still on the line, and Ulrich, I don't know if you want to add anything.
You have anything, Ulrich?
I think I will let Rick to talk.
Okay. Yeah, this is Rick Bradbury. Great discussion today. Appreciate all the good work and good information sharing. No, Dale just hit on something that probably is our biggest challenge, is just got a small crew. We've had our non-destructive testing team who's done some of the data collection, but they also run our FWD, our high-speed GPR. They run one of our ARAN units. So just the fact that our research engineer and assistant research engineer are out collecting data on projects gives you a picture of where we're at with that. So one of the things we're still looking at, it's great that we're still collecting information, but a lot with this and thermal profiling, we feel that those two tools are the biggest bang for the buck as far as advancing pavement quality, and we're still working with our industry, although slowly, because they seem hesitant to change anything that is not specified to implement tools such as this, even though all the data we collect shows that their thermal profiles have a lot of paver stops and a lot of thermal segregation, even when they're using an MTB. So we see these tools as being very important. We have a very good quality assurance program from the point of view of sampling and testing our materials. This construction piece is really, I think it's going to be a game changer. I still think that accuracy will be great correlating the RDM to density, but using just the dielectric and measuring uniformity is going to be very valuable, because quality is inversely proportional to variability, and out of the box, these things can, as long as it's working and functioning properly and not defective, it is measuring uniformity. So as a QC tool, I think you can go out without even comparing it to a single lab compacted specimen or core specimen and get a great deal of value out of improving construction processes by reducing variability.
It's a great point, Rich.
Yeah, it's a great point, and that's the advantage of this device. And the core cannot give you any, uniformity measurements and give you density, but doesn't tell you the uniformity of compaction. This device can give you density and also uniformity, and that's a big advantage of this device. I only have a few minutes left. I want to give all the states the opportunity to talk. On Idaho. Anybody from Idaho? Mark? Okay, Maryland. Maryland, anybody from Maryland? Okay, Mississippi. Mississippi? Nobody from Mississippi either? Wow. Missouri.
Everybody's shy, Di.
Please speak out. Don't shine. We're doing, like I said in the beginning, I do need your feedback and input to the project, and your involvement is very important too for us to make success for these specs. Anybody from Missouri? Okay, the New York already talked, and the Maine talked, Ohio talked, Pennsylvania. All right, anybody Pennsylvania? No. Washington?
Yeah, I'm here from Washington.
I got one.
We don't really have anything new to report or update. We're still waiting to get new staff in order to take this out in the field and try it. But this has been very interesting to hear all you guys' experience and knowledge so far today.
Thank you, Kyle.
Sorry, this is Pennsylvania. I was having trouble getting unmuted.
Oh, sorry.
Anyhow, yeah, we're kind of in the same category as kind of like thinking in a larger sense like Ohio is. We want to support this kind of research and this kind of pooled fund. We haven't done any projects yet, but we're trying to change that. We don't have a real large research group, and we did a few projects early on with the roller, the roller technology, and I kind of got overwhelmed with the data and stuff and kind of pulled back on that. But we see this as something that we can use to do a lot of forensic type of things and show us where we're doing, where we can improve our specifications in a grander sense. I think that the IR, the thermal stuff has a lot of potential, not only just from the thermal segregation part, but the just simple GPS, knowing where you are on the road and where you had a problem, and then using this to come in on a forensic basis and tell you, what your problems are, would be a pretty nice tool to show. Okay, here's where our problems are. Let's do some things to fix them, and work with the industry that way. But yeah, the data and the people we have, we just can't handle it. That kind of thing. Right there.
Great, thank you, Neil. North Dakota.
Yeah, this is John Stork. I'm in materials and research in North Dakota. So I'll just try and be brief on our experience with this, but we were able to get out and collect a few projects during the 2020 construction, as previously stated. The collections themselves are mostly just to, I don't want to call them proof of concept, but to become comfortable with the actual technology itself, and the RDM unit and the data collection. Similar to other states, it's more of a staffing concern than anything, because as you know, it's labor intensive to collect these projects. And all of that is basically done in our research section with a few different people. So we did get the lab kit, and we were able to run the samples that we collected during those projects in the summer, and we ran them over the winter and then created the lab correlations and compared those against the projects. For the most part, the lab correlations fit really well with themselves, but we did have a bunch of flyer cores in the actual field mix. And similar to New York, we had a lot of longitudinal joint that didn't fit anywhere. They didn't seem to really have a correlation at all. But I think a lot of that was due to basically inexperience on our end with some of the collection aspect of it. So this year we basically have bid some additional cores, and we're hoping to do a few intensive data collection projects where we can sort of vet out the technology a little bit farther, and then also figure out how significant of a mix change is required to actually, I don't know, trigger a lab correlation, and sort of balance the constructability versus, getting good data. Yeah, so that's pretty much where we're at in North Dakota.
Great, thank you. Utah. Last one is Utah.
Yeah.
No, Kane's here.
Yeah. Yeah, this is Ken from Utah. We've just purchased our RDM 2.0, and just looking forward to getting it out on the street, taking it for a spin around the block, and see what we can do to it and learn from it and just get used to it. Basically, that's where we're at.
Good, thank you. That's all I have. Thank you for the updates for the participant states. And so I should ask the Federal Highway, anything, Steve, from you? From anybody from Federal Highway?
Well, I didn't know if Hoda was still on the call, but Turner Fairbank or Leslie, if you have anything to add. Sounds like no.
Okay.
So we're all set.
Okay, that would be good. Any further or more questions for us or for the presenters? Okay, if no, and that's end of our meeting. It's 3 minutes past 2, and we consider as on time. Or 3 minutes.
We were on time until the very end,
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thank you for participating in this meeting. And like I said, keep continuously getting involved in the project and give us feedback. And that's very important for us to revise these procedures and produce these videos. Once we're allowed to travel, I still don't know what's the guidance on the travel and the meeting. Then we wish to bring the states back here in Minnesota to let you see the Gator DPAs, and hopefully we'll have the robot DPAs ready in this year, late this year or early of next year. That's all I have. And any closing comments from Glenn and Jeff?
No, just thanks everybody. Appreciate everybody's hard work. Like what I always say with this new technology, let's not hold it to a higher standard than our existing technology. We trust one core every so often, and I don't know. So just keep that in mind. So thanks. Appreciate everybody.
Yep. Thank you all.
Day.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Hopefully we can meet in person at some point here.
Yeah. Yeah, bye.
Thanks, everyone.